Hey everyone! Have you ever wondered what it was like to live through World War II? How the people coped with rationing, blackouts, and entire industries shifting overnight? And then how they adjusted to the new reality after it all ended? That's what we're going to talk about today. The 1940s were a decade of extremes. The first half was consumed by war, rationing, factory shifts, and an all-consuming national effort to win the fight. The second half saw the struggles of a world after the war, but also a booming economy and new opportunities. In this video, we'll break down how the war years and the post-war years contrasted each other and how, together, they started permanently reshaping modern American life, laying the foundation for the American dream, the golden age of television, and the future cultural revolutions. Hello and welcome to History of Life, where we relive history's greatest moments and the eras in between. If you'd like to see more fascinating facts, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. We love having you around, so thanks for checking us out. At the start of the decade, America was still recovering from the Great Depression, with unemployment at 14%. New Deal programs like the CCC provided jobs, but wages remained low. Many people were waiting in breadlines or taking whatever temporary work they could find. Farmers in the Midwest and South, still reeling from the Dust Bowl, either adapted with better irrigation or moved to cities for work. The U.S. tried to stay out of the war at first, but by 1941, America started to get involved, supporting the Allies. Everything changed on December 7, 1941, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, killing and injuring thousands of Americans. The next day, Roosevelt gave his famous Day of Infamy speech, and Congress declared war on Japan. Just a few days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S., and that was it. America was fully in the war. Men were lining up at recruitment offices or receiving draft notices that would send them to battlefields. Factories across the country pivoted to mass-producing military supplies. The War Production Board, established in 1942, helped bring unemployment to just 1.9% by 1943. Factory workers endured harsh conditions, long hours, dangerous machinery, and extreme heat, whether they were welding ship hulls, assembling bombers, or forging steel for tanks. Shifts were often 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Many workers lived in cramped dormitories, grabbing meals at war-era cafeterias before heading straight back to work. By 1945, the U.S. had produced nearly 300,000 airplanes, 88,000 tanks, and 2.4 million military trucks. Many rural families moved to cities for factory jobs, but those who stayed played a crucial role in food production. By 1945, American farms were producing record amounts of wheat, corn, and meat, though farming remained grueling work, with long hours and back-breaking labor. With men off to war, women were recruited to take their places. By 1945, nearly 19 million women were working, 6 million more than before the war. They welded airplane wings, assembled munitions, and even drove supply trucks, with Rosie the Riveter becoming a cultural icon. However, with few daycare options, women relied on neighbors, older relatives, or makeshift nurseries. Despite the war's demand for workers, discrimination shut many African Americans out of opportunities. Those who did find factory jobs were often relegated to lower-paying, segregated jobs. In 1942, over 100,000 Japanese Americans, most of them U.S. citizens, were forced into internment camps. Families were given just days to sell their homes, businesses, and possessions. Inside the camps, families lived in small barracks with shared mess halls and communal bathrooms. Many young men from these camps enlisted in the U.S. Army, joining the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which went on to become one of the most decorated units in American history. Their immigrant groups, like German and Italian Americans, also faced restrictions and surveillance, but it wasn't nearly as widespread. Every American received a ration book from the Office of Price Administration. Sugar, coffee, butter, meat, and canned goods were among the first to be rationed, with stamps dictating what you could buy, how much, and when. Housewives had to get creative. Honey and corn syrup replaced sugar, mashed potatoes were mixed into bread dough, and some reused coffee grounds or mixed in chicory. Civilians with stickers got just 3 to 4 gallons of gas per week, forcing many to bike, walk, or use streetcars. Farmers and delivery drivers with C-stickers had to prove need for extra fuel. Japan's invasion of Southeast Asia cut off 90% of America's rubber supply, so civilians were urged to patch and reuse old tires instead of buying new ones. This shortage also pushed scientists to develop synthetic rubber, helping sustain military production. Plastics advanced rapidly during this time, setting the stage for their post-war explosion in consumer goods. Nylon stockings had only hit the market in 1939, but by 1942, every ounce of nylon was needed for the war to make parachutes, ropes, and tent netting. When stockings disappeared entirely, women improvised by drawing seams on their legs with eyeliner. Black markets emerged with people siphoning gas from parked cars or paying outrageous prices for unused ration coupons. The government pushed conservation with slogans like "use it up," "wear it out," "make it do," or "do without." You've also probably seen those posters with slogans like "loose lips sink ships," warning folks not to share anything that could accidentally help the enemy. Scrap drives became a nationwide effort. Families searched attics, garages, and sheds for old pots, broken tools, and even rusty iron gates. Old car bumpers were melted into tanks, and tin cans were repurposed for ammunition. Housewives collected used kitchen fat, turning it in at butcher shops. The fats were then processed into glycerin and used for explosives. To help fund the war, Americans were encouraged to buy war bonds with rallies, parades, and celebrity endorsements. Movie stars like Bing Crosby and Bette Davis headlined events, urging crowds to open their wallets for Uncle Sam. By 1945, Americans had purchased over $185 billion in bonds, covering nearly half the war's cost. By 1943, 20 million Victory Gardens supplied nearly 10 billion pounds of food, turning backyards and even rooftops into mini farms. In the 1940s, over 90% of American households owned a radio, making it the most important source of news, music, and entertainment. With newspapers struggling to keep up with the rapidly changing war front, radio broadcasts brought events to life in real time. Shortwave reports from Europe and the Pacific described battles, air raids, and troop movements, while government-sponsored programs provided updates on rationing, war production, and national security. President Roosevelt's fireside chats reassured Americans during some of the war's darkest days. For soldiers stationed overseas, radio broadcasts provided a connection to home. Programs recorded in the U.S. were rebroadcast through military channels, ensuring that troops could hear the same music and voices as their families back home. Programs included fictional storylines with characters buying war bonds, dealing with gasoline restrictions, rationing shortages, and using food substitutions. Military research led to innovations in radar and communications equipment, which would later shape peacetime industries like television and commercial aviation. We've seen how daily life changed during the war, but what about after? As the war ended, America was about to enter a period of massive transition, from economic shifts to new cultural movements that set the stage for modern life. Meanwhile, if you're enjoying this video, we hope you can hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so we can share more captivating history tidbits with you. On August 15, 1945, Japan had surrendered and there were spontaneous celebrations everywhere. Times Square was packed, and that famous photo of the sailor kissing the nurse really captured the joy of the moment. In San Francisco, sailors climbed light posts and sang patriotic songs. In Chicago, ticker tape rained down from buildings, coating the streets in white. Some cities even saw impromptu parades with men in uniform hoisted onto the shoulders of strangers. But while there was so much relief and happiness, there was also a lot of grief. Over 400,000 American soldiers didn't make it back, and almost every family felt the weight of that loss in one way or another. After the war, factories had to go back to making regular stuff like cars, appliances, and electronics, but it took time to make the switch. Factories had to retool and reconnect with suppliers to resume consumer production. With war contracts canceled, factories reduced shifts or shut down entirely, leading to sudden job losses. At the same time, those who did work demanded higher wages, arguing that, after years of sacrifice, they deserved better pay. Workers in industries like coal mining, steel, and car production went on massive strikes. Between 1945 and 1946, over 5 million workers across the country walked off their jobs, making it one of the largest strike waves in American history. Despite the turbulence, demand for consumer goods exploded. Car dealerships, nearly empty during the war, suddenly saw long waiting lists for new models. Families scrambled to buy luxuries that had been put on hold for the war effort. Unemployment was just around 3.8% in 1948, and wages were climbing. Over 5 million cars rolled off assembly lines in 1949 alone, making America one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world. Gas stations, roadside diners, and drive-in theaters sprang up, and cities began expanding highways. Stores encouraged browsing, exploring, and impulse buying with their window displays, live demos, and installment plans. Even if you didn't buy something that day, the experience of shopping itself became a form of entertainment. Between 1945 and 1949, Americans bought 20 million refrigerators, 21.4 million cars, and 5.5 million stoves. TV was slowly starting to take radio's place. In 1946, only 8,000 homes had a set, but by the end of the decade, millions had been sold. Companies and department stores quickly leveraged television's influence by launching advertising campaigns and running holiday specials. And these trends only sped up as the 1950s went on. About 76 million babies were born between 1946 and 1964, the time period known as the baby boom. Suburbs were built with families in mind, with schools, playgrounds, and shopping centers close by. Levittown's success sparked a nationwide suburban boom. By the end of the decade, thousands of similar communities were springing up across America. One of the biggest reasons so many Americans could suddenly afford a house, a car, and a college education was the GI Bill. Passed in 1944, the GI Bill gave returning soldiers access to low-interest home loans, tuition assistance, and unemployment benefits. Many Black veterans were denied home loans due to redlining, and universities often set unofficial quotas to limit Black enrollment, effectively keeping them from the full benefits of the GI Bill. In 1948, the Supreme Court made a big decision in Shelley v. Kramer, ruling that racially restrictive housing covenants couldn't be legally enforced. Women who had become welders, machinists, or engineers during the war often found that employers refused to hire them in those roles after. They were expected to leave their jobs and return to homemaking. Government propaganda and advertisements reinforced this shift, portraying housewives as the ideal post-war woman. Some women remained in the workforce, but opportunities were limited to lower-paying jobs in clerical work, teaching, nursing, and service industries. As the world rebuilt itself, political divisions hardened. In 1947, President Harry Truman introduced the Truman Doctrine. This policy shifted America's role in global politics, and the U.S. became a self-declared leader of the free world. The Marshall Plan, passed the following year, injected $13.3 billion into rebuilding Western Europe. While framed as an economic recovery effort, the program was also designed to prevent struggling nations from falling under Soviet influence. In 1948, former government official Alger Hiss was accused of espionage, fueling paranoia that communist spies had infiltrated the U.S. government. These fears deepened in 1949 when the Communist Party took control of China, turning the most populous nation in the world into a Soviet ally. That same year, the United States and its allies formed NATO, a military alliance designed to counter Soviet influence. But even as international tensions grew, American culture was evolving in ways that hinted at future change. Rhythm and blues, led by artists like Louis Jordan, Ruth Brown, and a young Ray Charles, was rising in popularity. In Hollywood, films reflected both the nation's optimism and its anxieties. The musical South Pacific captured themes of romance and resilience, while The Best Years of Our Lives had given an unflinching look at returning veterans struggling to reintegrate into society. In sports, Jackie Robinson broke Major League Baseball's color barrier in 1947, opening doors for other black athletes like Larry Doby and Satchel Paige. Civil rights organizations were gaining momentum too. The NAACP, which had around 50,000 members at the start of the decade, had more than 500,000 by the end. The 1940s post-war boom laid the foundation for 1950s lifestyle. Uniform houses, modern appliances, white picket fences, and neatly trimmed lawns symbolized the American dream. Consumerism flourished alongside suburban expansion. Shopping malls emerged as temples of consumer culture. Advertising, now more persuasive than ever, encouraged Americans to buy not just what they needed, but what they desired. By 1956, around 70% of U.S. households owned a TV, ushering in the golden age of television. But beneath this glossy optimism, Cold War tensions were simmering. Families stocked up on canned goods, built fallout shelters, and schoolchildren learned to duck and cover in case of nuclear attack. The space race would soon take off, as both the US and the Soviet Union pushed the limits of technology to prove their global superiority. Meanwhile, the R&B sounds laid the foundation for the rock and roll revolution that would shake up social norms. But segregation and women being pressured to return to homemaking were also a prelude to the civil rights movement and social revolutions of the future decades. The 1940s didn't just define the next decade, they shaped the world we live in today. Imagine if the war had ended differently, or if post-war policies had changed. How do you think the world would be different? Thank you for watching History of Life. We hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. By the way, here at History of Life, we're always striving for perfection. Do you have any feedback on how we can improve? Do let us know in the comment section. And stay tuned, because next time we'll be diving into another incredible chapter of the past. Like this video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos like this. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to know when the next one comes out.